Someone you love is going to die. Maybe they already have. And when that moment came, or when it comes, you will do something strange. You will gather. You will speak their name out loud. You will place objects near their body. You will feel an overwhelming pull to do something, anything, because doing nothing feels impossible. You have always assumed that grief is just an emotion, but the real answer is far stranger than that. Grief is a technology, and your ancestors invented it long before language, long before cities, long before anything you would recognize as civilization. The question is not why humans mourn. The question is what mourning actually is, where it came from, and what it reveals about the kind of animal you really are. Start with a body on the ground, not a metaphor, a real body. 90,000 years ago, somewhere in what is now Israel, in a cave called Qafzeh, a child died. The people who loved that child dug a grave. They placed the child inside. They laid deer antlers across the body, antlers that had been carried from somewhere else, antlers that served no practical function. They were not trying to keep the body warm. They were not trying to protect it from scavengers in any efficient way. They were doing something else entirely. They were marking the moment. They were saying, in the only language available to them, that this life had mattered. Anthropologist Paul Pettit, who has spent decades studying prehistoric burial practices, calls this the first evidence of what he terms mortuary behavior. Not just disposing of a body, but surrounding it with meaning. The antlers at Qafzeh were not accident. They were intention. And Qafzeh is not alone. Travel to the Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq. Inside, in the 1950s, archaeologist Ralph Selecki uncovered the remains of a Neanderthal buried roughly 60,000 years ago. Around the skeleton, the soil contained an extraordinary concentration of pollen from flowers. Flowers that had been placed in the grave deliberately, or at the very least gathered and brought to the site. Selecki called the find evidence of a soul. Scientists have debated his interpretation ever since, but the fact remains. Something was placed in that grave that did not have to be there, something that required effort, something chosen. Your ancestors, even the ones you do not fully claim as ancestors, were already doing what you do. They were trying to make death mean something. Here is the part that changes everything. Grief is not a uniquely human phenomenon. It is not even uniquely primate. Elephants return to the bones of their dead and stand over them, touching the skulls with their trunks, sometimes for hours. Jane Goodall documented a chimpanzee named Flint who stopped eating after his mother died and was found dead 8 weeks later, within yards of the spot where she had been buried. Dolphins have been observed carrying dead calves on their backs for days. Crows, which are not even mammals, have been documented gathering around a dead crow and going silent. Do not reduce these behaviors to instinct too quickly. The silence of crows around their dead is not instinct. It is a pause, a recognition. What grief does, at its core, is create a gap between the world as it was and the world as it now is. Every grieving animal, every grieving person, is caught in that gap. Your nervous system keeps reaching for something that is no longer there. Neuroscientist Mary Frances O'Connor, who studies grief in the brain, found that bereaved people show activity in the nucleus accumbens when they see images of the person they lost. That is your reward system firing. Your brain is still predicting their presence, still expecting them to walk through the door, still searching. This is not malfunction. This is the most sophisticated social bonding mechanism ever produced by evolution. You grieve because you were wired to love. And love, at its biological root, is a prediction, a bet your brain makes that this person will be here tomorrow. Grief is what happens when that bet fails. Your ancestors understood this, even without neuroscience. They just found a different way to manage the gap. In La Chapelle-aux-Saints in France, another Neanderthal burial, this individual had severe arthritis, had lost most of his teeth, and had healed fractures that would have made independent survival nearly impossible. Someone had been caring for this individual for years. Long after he became a burden in any practical sense, his group kept him alive, and when he died, They buried him in a pit shaped carefully to hold his body. Think about what that means. Survival in the Paleolithic was brutal. Every calorie was contested, every resource was precious. And yet, a group of humans, or near humans, was feeding someone who could not hunt, could not forage, could not carry, could not fight. They were doing it because he was one of them, because his life had value that was.